Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the Future of Wrestling podcast with your hosts, the Maniac, Matt Tennant, and the Wolverine, Logan Myers.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Future of Wrestling podcast, episode 3. I am, of course, the Maniac Matt Tennant, alongside the Jerry Lawler to my Jim Ross. He is my friend, my co-host. He is the Wolverine, Logan Myers. And Logan, where can everybody check you out on Twitter and Slam Pigs and Facebook and social media on a whole?
And no, I do not have a tender. But
I left Tinder out purposely. I left it out purposely this week.
Dang. Well, I guess it's this week, since I don't have a Tinder, Matt doesn't have a Christian Mingle. That means only one thing: Matt has a Plenty of Fish site. There we go.
Jesus Christ!
I am definitely gonna keep on looking up random single men.
I thought you might. I somehow thought you might.
Good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can check me out on Twitter at LoganMyers144. Check us out on Facebook at Future Wrestling Podcast. And please hit the like button, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we're just getting bigger, badder, and better. And this week, we have a packed show. And Matt, where can they check you out on Twitter?
You can check me out on Twitter, as always, at TennantFutureDW, and you can check me and Logan out on Slam Pigs. Logan's on Cruise Control, I'm on Union Smack. And I'm surprised, Logan, you didn't actually mention your FetLife account.
My what account?
Look it up, you'll get the joke.
Oh, this is going to be good. Now I'm going to have to find something for next week. All right. Well, if that's all we have for now for the introduction.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
Let's move on.
Let's move on to our very first segment of the week. And I think this is the best segment of the week. If you think about it, it's a great segment to start out the show. It is the Hot Seat segment of the week. So, Matt, the questions that we have for both of us today is, 1, what wrestler would you want to see return for one more match?
I've thought about it, and I would have to say, in 60 seconds, The Rock. I don't think he's yet been given a proper send-off. I think he's got one more great match left in him, providing it was his last match. And I'd like to see The Rock, as a lifelong fan, just have that one last farewell match. Logan?
Man, in 60 seconds, you can say a lot. And I'm going to say a lot because, we don't know what the future holds for Kurt Angle, so I'm not going to pick Kurt Angle. I got to go with the rattlesnake himself, Stone Cold Steve Austin. I think one more match would be the best thing for Stone Cold, and this would be a main event caliber match, and it can't be at any other pay-per-view.
I agree. I would agree. One question, stop the timer. Would one more Austin match be as good as his last match against The Rock? Because I personally don't think it would be.
See, it's been years since Stone Cold's been in the ring. I know
14.
That's a good question, Matt. That's something we should make a topic next week, and
we should actually.
We can make it another segment, just talk about, maybe we could do it in the what if for next week. Instead of a world champion, why not have what if? What if it was a one more match return? Let's do it.
I like that idea. Let's do it. There you go. Our first segment for next week for all our friends listening. So tune in for that. Next question, Logan.
It is, who is your favorite and not so much favorite, but Who do you think has a better future, Chad Gable or Jason Jordan?
Hard question. And I couldn't pick when you asked me the question, to be fair. I think Jordan's been handed a major push for his career. But Chad Gable has everything in the ring to succeed. So I'm going to have to wimp out and sit on the fence here. I can't choose between them right now. I literally can't. I think they could both be stars. Huge stars.
So you can't literally pick in 60 seconds, Matt. Huh.
I can't. You could give me 10 minutes and I couldn't pick.
I gave you a hard question this week, huh?
You did. The first one I could not answer. So, plaudits to you.
In 60 seconds, I'm going to do it in 10 seconds. I'm going to go with Chad Gable over Jordan.
Reason?
Well, just look at it. When you're thrown into a position to succeed, it's either sink or swim, and that's the only question that's going to come through the mind of any fan is in the upcoming months. Will he sink or will he swim? And I just think he won't swim. And no, I'm not trying to drown his ass either. Okay.
So to get this clear, you don't think he'll swim?
I don't think he'll swim, and it's not anything personal. His in-ring ability is great. The only thing is he wasn't that good to begin with when they first came into the WWE. They couldn't find their, rhythm, and then when they became a tag team, that's when they clicked. So really, you're probably saying, well, Logan, that can be said to the same thing for Chad Gable. Well,
yeah,
you're throwing Jordan to the Sharks and letting Chad Gable go into the little swimming pool.
I can see that. And third and final question for this week's Hot Seat segment.
Will Drew McIntyre defeat Bobby Roode for the NXT title at TakeOver?
Short answer, no. In 60 seconds, it's hard to explain why. I will go into it more on what will be our special NXT Brooklyn 3 Takeover podcast coming your way in the middle of August. I think Bobby Roode has got much more left to give. I honestly think Bobby Roode is the future of the company. I think I'm a massive Bobby Roode mark. We'll get to that later in the NXT review. But the short answer is no, not yet. Eventually, yes, not yet.
You're gonna be shocked because I say yes, he will take the title
Wow.
off Bobby, and Bobby Roode will win the title back in the upcoming months.
There you go. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is this week's Hot Seat segment. And that segues us pretty much nicely, Logan, into this week's Future Now News. And our first piece of Future Now News it's done its rounds on the internet. I think it's fair to say, though it's pretty recent, so a lot of people reading this might not have heard, a lot of people listening to this might not have heard it yet. And that, of course, is Mark Henry is finally, after a career, Logan, spanning, 21 years?
Yep.
Is finally... There you go. Mark Henry's been around as long as Logan, ladies and gentlemen, in a wrestling ring.
He did debut in 1996.
Yes, he did. And he's finally, after a so-so career, is stepping aside for what has been reported as a road agent role backstage. Your thoughts on this, Logan?
Yeah, I think it's good for Mark Henry. He, like you said, he had a so-so career. I think his best career moment is when he fake retired and destroyed John Cena with a World's Strongest Slam. Mm-hmm. Transitioning him to a backstage agent is, to me, a positive thing for a guy that, to me has always been positive backstage of what I've heard and what I've read.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be right to say he would fail as an agent. I think he would be very good at it. I think a lot of people might have something different to say, because match-wise, but I think character-wise, I think he can really help out the young guys backstage, give them some advice on, not just in-ring talent or character-wise, just, how to be also positive,
Yeah, I see what you're saying with that. I mean, there's so much to say about Mark Henry and his career. It's difficult to know where to start. I think they started out with him in 1996 with all the best intentions in the world. They gave him Jerry Lawler, who was, let's be fair, is one of the greatest wrestlers in history. Whatever people might think of Jerry Lawler as a man or a commentator, it doesn't take away from what he accomplished in the ring. It just didn't get any better for Mark Henry for me. His Nation stint was so-so, I'd say. It wasn't great. They gave him the whole Mae Young angle. They gave him the whole China angle. It felt like when they needed a patsy in the Attitude Era, they went to Mark Henry, and it didn't help his career. He got a bit more serious when he turned heel in, I think it was 2003, under the tutelage of Teddy Long. That was okay. I agree with you that him and his swerve on John Cena in the fake retirement angle was good. I've never seen Mark Henry act that well before. I would say his finest career moment came at Night of Champions 2011 when he beat Randy Orton for the World Heavyweight Championship, and I'll tell you for why. I've never seen Mark Henry before or after that put on such a great match. Everyone went into that match, Logan, if you remember it, if our viewers remember it, thinking that this is just going to be another bore, but it wasn't. It was like somebody had sprinkled some of that fairy dust over Mark Henry's head, and he went out there, and I know a lot of it had to do with Randy Orton, who was obviously a much better performer when it came to helping other talent out 6 years ago. But Mark Henry really put in a shift. And I have to say that it was a really good match. It was a really, really good match. And I think that is when he peaked. For me, that is when Mark Henry really should have retired, because he's spoilt his legacy since. He's put on dull match after dull match. And if anybody disagrees, you know where to find us on Twitter. Drop it in the comments below. But I think Mark Henry retiring now isn't before time. It should have happened 5 years ago, if not longer. And as far as him moving into a role backstage, I've got mixed feelings about it. I can see him being able to help character development because he's been around the business so long. But like you say, he's had so many bad matches in his time, and he's come across like he didn't really know how to put on a good match without an opponent of better stature, that I can't see him being an asset if they're going to use him to help book matches.
I can see where that can be said for a lot of guys backstage.
Yeah, it can.
I think one of the best. I don't mean to take a left turn, but as a backstage agent, I think that one of the best that I've seen backstage is Dean Malenko was one of them a couple years ago. I don't know if he is or not still. I know Billy Kidman is one. Mm-hmm. But I think, to me, there's so many guys that I think could use the Mark Henry advice on certain things.
Yeah, he could be he could be an asset to a younger guy coming up from NXT to bed them into the main roster and obviously the locker room which is a different feel to the NXT locker room. You know, that could be where Mark Henry's strength lies as a road agent. Just getting new talent comfortable in the locker room. It doesn't sound like a massive role, but that could then have greater benefits on their in-ring performance and their career going forward.
Well, you stated, saying about him not being able to really put on good matches over the past couple of years. I think part of that is, his knees got the better of him, in my opinion. Yeah. The injuries, like Big Show, but Big Show looks really good. Really good now.
He does. He looks better now than he did in 2001, Big Show.
Even 2006. So,
even 2015.
Yeah. But like Mark Henry also lost a lot of weight too and then shaved his head. I think backstage wise, I think that's going to help a lot of guys out.
Yeah.
I don't think he would be that guy that can like tell you what to do in ring because he wasn't the high flyer. So like his arsenal was more ground and pound.
Yeah, it was more strength related.
I feel like Amaro right now, like telling you how to say something on commentary. And I'll speak more about Morrow later in the NXT review. I have a lot to say.
The final thing I think we should say about Mark Henry is whatever people feel about him, and this isn't rumour, by the way, like this is fact, Mark Henry is retiring from professional wrestling, is that it doesn't matter what you think about a wrestler. I've always been, from the minute I got into professional wrestling, I was always taught that it doesn't matter what you feel about a wrestler in the ring, it doesn't matter how good or bad he is, that you always respect them because they're putting their life on the line at the end of the day for our entertainment. And so whatever your feelings on Mark Henry, then it's still a very big thank you because he's provided a lot of people with a lot of talking points over the years. So, for the talking points, for his 21-year sacrifice of his body, and for some really good matches, not many, but for some, I think Mark Henry still deserves a very big thank you from the WWE universe.
I think Mark Henry is a guy that you can say thank you to, and I think a guy that deserves it, even though he, you know what I mean? I wish I had more time to actually tell you this story. Did you get to watch the Nation of Domination Table for Three? Travis. Yep, no, I got Travis on my Matt. Maniac Matt. My apologies.
I didn't. And to be fair, I haven't watched a lot of Table for Three on the network. It is something I'm meaning to catch up with.
Well, it's definitely something to watch, guys. Since we don't have the time to say it. Please go on the WWE Network and listen to and watch the Table for Three with Farouk, Mark Henry, and The Godfather.
There you go, a recommendation. And obviously from everyone, Logan at Future of Wrestling, a massive, massive thank you to Mark Henry. So now, our next storyline.
Yep, our next story, news of the week. We are actually going to talk more about the Kurt Angle segment from Raw. It's not the news that we can say is Jason Jordan is officially, supposedly, Kurt Angle's son. It wasn't a Dixie Carter thing or a Stephanie McMahon thing. And ladies and gentlemen, that is a crazy thing, a crazy storyline to even talk about. I hope we can do it in the time limit that we would like.
Yeah. I don't have a lot to say about this, to be honest.
Oh, wow.
It surprised me. For the first time in countless years, Vince McMahon surprised me. I honestly thought, if anyone listened to last week's show, it was going to be Dixie or it was going to be Stephanie or at a push Triple H. But no, They honestly surprised me. I never saw this coming. And that isn't something you can say about professional wrestling, especially World Wrestling Entertainment, a lot these days. I don't know where it goes from here. You can't bring Jason Jordan to Raw in a storyline like this, split up American Alpha in the process, and not give him just a massive push. I would expect Jason Jordan to maybe even win the Royal Rumble. You know,
Oh, that's pushing it.
I know it's pushing it, but like, what else? I can't see them building this up, giving us what was effectively a disappointing payoff because everyone expected a bit more, and then just burying Jason Jordan in the mid card. They would need their heads testing, Logan. They would need their heads testing if they did that, because you would have then basically broken up the most promising tag team in 10 years, if not longer, for nothing.
I agree. I'm going to actually beat you on how much I have to say about this. Because when I say this and I stop, that's all I have for you. I'm honest. Okay. I'm honest to God. Okay. This felt like a damn Hornswoggle storyline, okay? And I didn't like it too well. And I do see a good future for Jason Jordan. I just don't know booking this way is going to help him or hurt him. And like I said in the hot seat segment, it's swim or sink. It's sink or freaking swim. And I doubt he swims after this. I want him to succeed because I see it. I see the resemblance of both of them, Kurt Angle and Jason Jordan. I see it. I feel it. I want it to be the way I want it. I want to see it in a way that the fans, always. I don't want him to be the next Roman Reigns. Of course not.
No.
I don't want him to be a John Cena. I don't want him to be The Rock. I don't want him to really be Kurt Angle. I don't. That's what I'm coming at with this thing. You don't want him to turn out to be something he's not and expect him to be that, because at the end of the day, if he fails, it's not on him all the most. It's because the booking wise and storyline wise, you're trying to make him be somebody that he might not be. And that's like in a relationship. You can't change somebody to have them to be the way you want them to be.
Yeah.
You have to let them be themselves. And I think that might actually hurt him in the long run.
Yeah. We don't want a carbon copy. The one thing I will say about this angle, and you're right, we can move on after this because we don't know where it's going. We can sit here and theorize all day, all night, all week, but in the end, the proof, as they say, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. We just have to wait to see what they do with Jason Jordan now and cross our fingers that the sacrifice they've made with American Alpha isn't just a bad choice. I will say that credit to Kurt Angle and Jason Jordan for the acting that they put. Kurt Angle was like in tears, really like that. But the most entertaining thing I saw after this was on Twitter. Someone had made a meme, and it wasn't you, Logan. It wasn't Logan. Anyone who knows Logan's brilliant memes.
Are you sure it wasn't?
I'm sure it wasn't. Where they had photoshopped into a picture of Kurt Angle's Hall of Fame induction, just two like, I don't know what you call them, two like bottles of chocolate milk. And I really found that funny. And I don't know why I did, but I just did. Now, moving on to the end of... Go on.
I have one last question. I know I said after what I said was done, I have a question for you, Matt. Does he sink or swim? Go. That's honestly, like another hot seat segment. Sink or swim, Matt?
I think he sinks. I think it's the wrong brand. I think it's the brand that has too many I'll say faces, but I don't mean faces as in heroes. Like too much talent. I just think he's going to get lost in the shuffle, like every other mid-card player has.
I see him sinking, but I don't see him sinking because of that reason. I see him sinking not because of too many faces in the pool, just too many dumb faces in the pool, if you get what I mean. You get what I mean?
They're not going to push Jason Jordan as much as we want them to over Reigns, Rollins, Ambrose, Strowman, Joe, Lesnar. You know, he's not going to make it with them people still around.
No, he might. Mid-card wise, they do need some mid-card guys in there because really, there's no faces for the Intercontinental title. So that's all I want to say. I think we should just go ahead and move on to our next segment.
We should.
Go ahead, Matt.
They'll show us with Jordan, hopefully. The next and last part of what is a first for us, Logan. Future Now News is in 2 parts this week. Part 2 is coming your way later on in the show. So, the end of part 1, we are going to now cover the heavily rumoured SummerSlam match between Shane McMahon, who thankfully is okay and unscathed after his adventures this week, against Rusev. I'll go. When you first told me about this...
I apologize for that. I had some technical difficulties.
That's okay. After you told me about this, Logan, we had a good discussion about the entire SummerSlam card before we came on air last week. I couldn't see this working. After Rusev's tweets about the Shane McMahon helicopter crash this week, maybe like if they use Shane sparingly in the run up to it and don't just bog SmackDown down with his presence, then maybe this could work. But like I said to you last week, I'm not a fan of them constantly using the owner's family in storylines when there's other wrestlers they could use. And it's like every time they wheel out a McMahon in a match, it's bad enough when they do it in the storyline, but when they do it in an actual pay-per-view match itself, it just takes me back to Vince McMahon versus Steve Austin and the feud that they kept going way too long just because Vince couldn't bear to take himself out the spotlight. And I'm sure Rusev will beat Shane McMahon at SummerSlam because, come on, if he loses at Battleground to John Cena, which pretty sure he will, and then he loses to Shane McMahon at SummerSlam, what's left for Rusev 2 months after his return?
Exactly. But I do disagree with you.
Oh.
I think the Shane McMahon being interjected into a match with Rusev is a great thing for Rusev. Rusev could use somebody that is a fan favorite to actually beat. If he's not going to beat John Cena, which, I'll answer that with our prediction.
It's Cena,
but
yeah.
Honestly, I think it's a great thing for Rusev to have Shane McMahon face him. I think Shane McMahon can actually put him over a little bit more than a John Cena. Of course, Shane McMahon and Rusev is going to put on a Shane McMahon versus Kane type match, which is not a bad thing. I think this match is a gimmick if it does indeed happen. Rusev is very good in the ring. I think he's one of the most underrated talents that WWE has to offer.
I can't disagree.
I kind of do miss his long hair. I don't think short hair actually really, I don't think it suits him that well. That's like Michael Elgin from Ring of Honor when he shaved his mullet. it was kind of best.
Yeah. As far as Shane McMahon versus Rusev being a gimmick match, that would be best. But I have to say, after what Shane McMahon showed us at WrestleMania against AJ Styles, who I know is obviously a better opponent than Rusev. You know, AJ carried Shane through that match a lot. I'm seeing these two could still go in just a normal one-on-one match. It wouldn't be as good as Styles versus Shane, but I still think they could pull it off if it was just a normal singles. But I do believe it'll be last man standing or something along those lines.
It has to have a gimmick match. It just does. It's one of the matches like AJ Styles versus Shane McMahon didn't need a gimmick match because both guys actually put on a phenomenal match, and that's no pun intended to AJ Styles.
They did. They did. Sorry to interrupt you. They did put on a phenomenal match on the night, but there was a lot of worry beforehand. Like people were waiting for it to be a gimmick match, and it wasn't. And then before they got in the ring, people were like, "This isn't going to work." So I appreciate that their match at WrestleMania was great, but we didn't know it was going to be great until it went on the card.
Exactly. But I think Rusev versus Shane McMahon, I think it needs a gimmick. It needs a gimmick bad. And that's not throwing Rusev under the bus saying he wouldn't be able to help Shane McMahon have a good match one-on-one. I just think for some reason I just have this funny feeling. Maybe it's kind of like the feeling that I had before the AJ Styles and Shane McMahon match. Maybe they might shock us, but at the end of the day, it only time will tell.
Yeah, I see what you're saying about Rusev. He hasn't got the personality AJ Styles had. He hasn't got the personality that Shane McMahon's got. And I'll go out there and say it, and people can disagree with me. Rusev, you're as boring as fuck, but you're a good wrestler. So we'll let that slide.
And there you are. My first player of the day. Let me write this down. Okay, that's number 1. He said the F word.
He's keeping tabs now, everyone. Every week he's keeping little tabs on little swear words I say. And then come our 50th episode, he's just going to give me a big number of how often I cuss.
Not a big number. You owe me $1, so then I can actually buy me that one shirt that I want.
My God, I'm going to end up owing Logan a lot of money by the end of this podcast alone, probably, for some of the things we've got coming up. Logan,
maybe I could buy a shirt for my one friend. You know.
Yeah. And moving on to our very first new segment on Future Now News. And can I just say, I meant to say this at the beginning, but I'm a dickhead, so I forgot. The brand new Future of Wrestling, Logan. The brand new look, brand new logo.
I know. The logo that we have is phenomenal. And that is a pun intended to AJ Styles because that is what I'm going to call Travis from now on. Phenomenal Travis. Because
the phenomenal one.
A lot of great work for us at Future Wrestling Podcast. Please go subscribe if you haven't already to Slam Pigs Podcast on YouTube today.
Yes, do. And a big thank you to Travis from both of us because we wouldn't be here without him.
That is exactly right, but it looks like it is time, Matt.
Yes.
Once again, okay, for the first time on Future Wrestling Podcast, it is this week's NXT review.
I was so tempted then, Logan, to go NXT, but I won't.
Well, you won't.
I won't.
Can I say something before we start doing reviews on the matches and all that? Can I?
You can say whatever you like.
Okay. First off, I think Mauro and Nigel doesn't need David Otunga. I'm sorry. I mean Byron Saxton.
Outtake.
My bad. That one dude who sucks. Yeah. Wait, they all three do. Byron, David, and whatever the hell Percy,
Watson.
whatever his name is.
Showtime. But
How
can you forget Showtime? He will be deeply, deeply offended, Logan. But Percy, if you're listening to this, you're boring as fuck. Carry on, Logan.
I thought you were gonna like slap me upside the head and take his side.
No, as if I'd ever
and I
take his
picked you as
side.
a co-host.
Oh my god. Carry on. What were you going to say?
Okay, all right. Well, that's all I was gonna say, but I'll throw this one in. Hey, Nigel McGuinness, please stop stealing my lines. I invented It Speaks Volumes. I heard that so many times tonight on this episode of NXT, and that is my line. Stop stealing it. I've done that so many commentary. Okay, just throwing that out there. You're welcome.
There you go, Nigel. You've been warned by the Wolverine himself. A question for you, Logan, on the NXT commentary before we start. Would you get rid of Nigel McGuinness, or would you just get rid of Percy Watson? Have it a two-man booth, or would you add someone else in there instead of Watson?
Get rid of Percy Watson and put Jim Ross on. Those three together would just be like cake and ice cream.
I can't disagree with that. I was thinking Joey Styles, but maybe I'm going too old school with that.
My God. Come on.
Seriously, you don't like Joey Styles? The voice of ECW.
I was doing his oh my God. You know?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Well,
there we go. A different of opinion.
Matt, don't ever try to do Joey Styles. You're just no, just not good at it.
I'll stick to Howard Finkel instead. Logan, match 1 on this week's NXT. Our first NXT review was possibly my match of the night, even my match of the week, and that was Ember Moon versus Ruby Riott. Your thoughts on this match?
You even took it that far to say match of the week?
Did you not think?
I actually thought the Charlotte versus Becky Lynch was pretty good too.
I thought it was pretty good, but I thought this was better.
Well, I mean, I like both combined, so let's go.
Well, there you go. Your thoughts on the match?
Okay, I'll start. Well, I think this was a better all-around quality match that, anything that comes out of that one company. Is that Impact Wrestling or Global Force or whatever you want? Global Nuts? I don't know. Whatever. Before I even finish what I'm going to say, I guess we'll keep Percy Watson. I mean, he is better than that Joey Matthews.
Styles.
That's not it.
From Impact Wrestling, Josh Matthews.
Joey Matthews, John Matthews. Oh, that's right. Josh Matthews. The guy from Tough Enough who probably hasn't seen a titty since his mommy changed her bra above the basement stairs. I don't know.
Do you know what, Logan? I'm getting mixed signals from you. Do you like Josh Matthews or not?
Okay, I like his mother. I'm sorry.
Riot. Please let there be a Twitter war over this. Please.
Ember Moon and Ruby Riott had chemistry, and it was an excellent match, Matt. I think they could really put on a good feud in the future when Asuka's gone.
Yeah.
I want to see more of these two. Everybody's a big fan of Ember Moon, and I can see why. But I also see why I'm a fan of Riott. I don't like her name, like Travis said off air to us before we started recording, but I do like her in ring.
Yeah. I have mixed feelings on Ruby Riott. I mean, tonight's NXT was the first time she's really showed me that much. I know she hasn't had an opportunity. She's had Nikki Cross and Asuka in a triple threat match. But apart from that, it's been mostly jobbers for her on NXT. So I think this was the perfect opportunity for Ruby Riott to just go out there and show the world what she could do as a wrestler, because she did it in Shimmer. And I think Ember Moon was the perfect opponent for her. Ember herself, coming back off of injury. Ember Moon is HAF, for anyone who knows what that means. I'm not going to say it out loud for you. Do you see, is Ember Moon, Logan, your next NXT Women's Champion?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do see her as the next NXT Women's Champion.
I think it's hands down. For most people, I just don't see anybody else ready right now to take that title off Asuka. The match itself, very competitive, very, very good. Go out of your way to watch this if you haven't already. And I would say, as a last little point on this, no, two last little points, sorry. The main roster should watch this match. Raw, mostly. This is how you put on a decent to very, very, very good women's match. Not what we've been getting in the past few weeks from Raw. They have got better, don't get me wrong. But this, on a weekly basis for the Raw women's division, would do a hell of a lot. And I would have really had Ember Moon take the microphone after the match and just say, Asuka, you're mine. And that's it. Because we know she wants the title. We know she should get a rematch. I wasn't too thrilled about her last NXT Women's Championship match with Asuka. I really didn't get into that at all. Are you moving house on the end of that phone, Logan?
What was that? I'm sorry, it cut out on me there for a second.
I said there's just a lot of noise. I said, are you moving house or?
That's not me.
Is that not you?
No, that's not me.
I think Travis has hit the microphone on.
Oh, for real?
Because I'm sure I heard his dog bark. So anyway, let's get on with this. What was I going to say? Yeah, Ember Moon is the future of NXT, and wasn't blown away by her last match with Asuka. I think give them a little more time. Give Ember Moon the freedom to do what she wants. Asuka will do whatever she wants. We know that. And they could have... I really believe that Ember Moon and Asuka could have the next NXT match of the year. And that is even going above like Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate, which for me so far is my match of the year. Might be a bit biased, but... What did we have next, Logan, on our NXT review?
On NXT, we had Oni Lorcan versus Danny Burch. And
hang on, can we just stop this a minute, Logan? Because the noise... Can you... we'll ask Travis to edit this out. Can you message him and say there's a really bad noise and I could hear his dog... I could hear his dog barking.
I already did. I already messaged him.
I don't know whether to continue with this. If you know what I mean? If there's going to be a lot of noise.
Right now, there's no noise, so maybe we should just do 3, 2, 1 and just go with it.
Okay. And for Travis listening, edit out the part from where I said, and what's next on this week's NXT review. We'll do that back again in 3, 2, 1. And Logan, what's next on this week's NXT review?
Well, we have Oni Lorcan versus Danny Burch. And let me go and say these two were two heavy hitters and two guys who are technically trying to find their way into NXT and get more, a bigger fan base. And these guys were vicious. And Danny got really bloody throughout this match.
He did.
I actually really enjoyed the ending of the match. I really was impressed with that single leg crab from Oni Lorcan with the homage to his trainer, who actually trained him, if nobody actually knew that, by Lance Storm himself.
Yes. Absolutely. Do you think, and this is a good question, matches like this with, let's be fair, middle card NXT talent, I don't see Only Lorcan going for the NXT Championship anytime soon. Do you think matches as good as this, and as good as Lorcan and Itami have had in the past weeks, are a case for another singles title on NXT? Because as far as I see, what have the likes of Only Lorcan got to fight for?
That is exactly true. I understand that these two guys. What am I trying? How am I trying to say this? These guys, in my opinion, they have a long way to go. You mentioned NXT title. I don't see them getting any time close to that title.
No, me neither.
Man, there is one guy that I can't wait to see get there, and that is Aleister Black. And he's not even in this match.
He's not in this match. But do you think, it would advance the NXT mid-card if they had an NXT Intercontinental Championship for those underneath, way underneath the main event to fight for?
That is true. I mean, maybe like a, what would you say, like a lightweight champion or...
I just think an NXT Intercontinental Champion. I mean, why not? The Intercontinental title used to be the stepping stone to the main event. That's gone away from its aura right now. But the way NXT very carefully, very cleverly booked their mid-card, I think an NXT Intercontinental Championship or something along those lines could really boost, the NXT card underneath the main event. Because right now you've got Only Lorcan in the frame, you've got Hideo Itami, who needs something fast if he's staying around. You've got Cassius Ohno. You've got the likes of Roderick Strong. That is a very strong Intercontinental title picture or singles title underneath the NXT Championship as it stands, without mentioning even the rest of them that are to come up.
Good point. Very good point. There's nothing really to argue about that, honestly.
Thank you very much. I try to make good points every week. Sometimes it doesn't work. What would you rate this match? Because I know we'll do a whole rating at the end of the show, but I thought, compared to the squash match, which was to come, and then the main event, I thought this was the best singles male match on the card.
Definitely, I gotta give it a B. It was a great match.
It was a very good match, and I can't disagree. I'd go maybe B minus. I thought the ending was good. I don't like them having a talent like Danny Burch tap out. Everyone who listens to Union Smack will know that I'm a big Danny Burch fan. He's much better than constant losses. He's much better than what they're using him for. And I think 6 months of solid push behind Danny Burch, he could be massive. He could be. That's just my personal opinion. Next up on the card, Logan, it was a squash match. No Way Jose versus, I think it was Cesar Bononi.
I want to get your opinions on this before I say anything.
Go on.
Go ahead, Matt.
Okay. I thought it was a waste. Bononi, obviously, for people who don't know, defeated Almas. I think it was 2 months ago. The little video package said that should have surely been his breakout moment, beating a talent like Almas. I know it's hard. I know NXT have got a lot of stars that they want to get over right now. I know Triple H is trying his best to keep everybody happy, to keep every name in the frame whilst bringing up the next generation. But I really thought, like, what does No Way Jose get out of this? You know, he's already an established NXT star. So what, you've just beat someone who's tantamount to a jobber who got lucky. As where, had Benoni won, I think they could have possibly pushed him a little bit further to see how fans would gauge him against the Roderick Strong. Logan is... that's all I've got to really say. It was a squash match for me. That was how I viewed it.
Okay, I want to speak on somebody and then the match. Benoni looks like a future star. This match, no comment.
Well, there you go. No comment. And I think we should move on because, Logan, you sound really, really pissed off about this match. So let's not bring out the Wolverine. Let's move straight on to the NXT main event, which was for the number one contendership of Bobby Roode's NXT Championship at NXT Brooklyn Takeover 3. I'll let you start this one off, Logan, because I feel like I've talked too much.
Now, it was Drew McIntyre taking on Killian Dane, and what a main event match this was. I don't want to say it was bad, but I don't want to say it was good. I think the only time that I actually enjoyed this match was when Killian Dane hits the senton and then the Vader bomb.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also like the fact that he showed something when he kicked out of the Future Shock DDT at 1.
Yes, at 1. Jesus.
That was crazy. But then when he kicked out of the other finisher of Drew McIntyre, that was when I was just like, okay, don't overkill it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I hate wrestlers kicking out of finishing moves anyway. I think it devalues the move. I can see why it might have devalued Killian Dane had he just been beaten with what is essentially a DDT. I just don't like that he kicked out of 2 moves. He didn't even kick out of the second Claymore kick. He just got up from it. So it's hard to judge. Sometimes kicking out of finishers can add to a wrestler's image. Sometimes it just destroys the move. I think if it's done once in a blue moon, it's acceptable. If it's done every week, then somebody needs to take a good, long, hard look at how they book a wrestling match. For me, the match itself, it was okay. I'm not going to go out there and say, oh, it's Drew McIntyre, it was really special. It wasn't really special. Had its moments, had its little spots, really slowed down in the middle for me. And that is where I think I lost the will to carry on watching. I did carry on watching, of course, but it you know what I mean? When Dane had that nerve hold on McIntyre in the middle of the ring, it seemed to go on forever. And I just thought, this could have... I applaud them for pushing a talent like Killian Dane. You know, they were high on him at WrestleMania in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. They've been high on him in Sanity. But I don't know whether he belonged in this match. I know why they did it. Have Drew McIntyre go over a monster makes him look better when he faces Roode. Fine. But I'm 100% sure 80% of the NXT audience would have preferred Drew McIntyre versus Roderick Strong, because Roderick Strong had the better claim to a spot in a number one contenders match.
Good point. I kind of almost have to agree with you, but I think this is time. I think just because it's like a SummerSlam or a WrestleMania takeover, I think this is when you have to interject Drew McIntyre. I think it's time.
Oh, I totally agree with that. And I would have had Drew McIntyre win, even if it was Roderick Strong he was facing, because obviously Bobby Roode's been NXT champion now for quite a while. He's had no serious challenger for me. Even Itami, like, there was never any doubt in my mind he'd beat Hideo. Drew McIntyre is going to be Bobby Roode's first serious challenger since Nakamura. And that's good. That's going to lead to, I don't know, a 3-4 month maybe program, considering we only get Takeover once every 2 months. Going back to what we touched on earlier just quickly, because I know time is tight, I can't see Drew McIntyre beating Bobby Roode this time around. I think if you swap the titles back and forth, I think that not only diminishes McIntyre, it diminishes Roode as well. I would much rather see McIntyre go so close, closer than Roderick Strong did, and just come up short, and then challenge him again at the Takeover before Survivor Series, and then win. I don't agree that Bobby Roode should get a rematch for the title, because then that would mean he'd have to lose twice. I think in some circumstances, like Asuka, when a wrestler has been so dominant in one position, like Bobby Roode has as NXT champion, once they've lost the title, that's it. Draw a line under it, move them up, and see what they can do on the main roster.
That's a good point. There's a question that we will have to ask at some point down the line. I don't think we should answer it right now, but when Bobby Roode and Asuka lose their titles and they move to the main roster, who do you have on NXT?
That's a very good point. I think NXT they've been really good, but they've also booked themselves into a hole, especially where Asuka's concerned. She's been on the NXT roster so long now that it's almost painful that she's still there. And she needs to be on the main roster, but at the same time right now, the NXT women's division still needs her. So they're in a very tight spot with Asuka. I think Bobby Roode will be fine going up to the NXT, the WWE main roster, around November time. I think Drew McIntyre is of such a name now, and WWE have got 4 months to really build him as the next big star. I think with that 4 months, they could do that with Drew McIntyre, and he could comfortably replace Bobby Roode. And I'm sure, Logan, I had someone else in mind for who would beat Drew McIntyre for the title, but it slipped my mind right now. That's maybe something, if I remember, for our Takeover show, which is, ladies and gentlemen, coming to you the week of Takeover and SummerSlam. Now, yes. Logan, part
is it
2.
Time to move on?
It is time for part 2 of Future Now News. And I think we can get through this pretty quickly. Some points to be made, but I think this is mostly easy for us. Part 1.
Well, you want me to go ahead and go with it?
Yeah, you can go with it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the very first news for the second half of Future Now News is Rey Mysterio is in negotiations with Global Force Wrestling, bloody hell, and WWE. Thank God.
Yeah. The news coming out of this is that he had a meeting with Global Force, who is obviously now part of Impact Wrestling, on Monday, and a contract was as good as put in his hands. For me, there's literally one question with this, Logan. Does he sign with Global Force Wrestling, or does he hold out for a deal from Vince McMahon, which includes a Hall of Fame induction and all the media, like DVDs and T-shirts that go with it?
Pardon me. Okay, you got to look at this in 2 different shoes. I wish some people would do that, or could do that. Rey Mysterio has 2 options on the table. You have Global Force Wrestling, which, of course, he will go back to good friends of Conan and all them from that stable.
WCW. Yeah.
And then you have WWE, where there is news that Dominic, his son, does want to train to become a professional wrestler, and WWE is also offered for him to come to the Performance Center and work out and train. So that is something to also talk about and think about. What do you do if you're in Rey Mysterio's shoes when you have two situations and two offers on the table? I got to go with WWE on this because you have a son that wants to train. Impact Wrestling's not going to give you that.
No. Well, what are Impact going to give Rey Mysterio? They're going to put him in the LAX, which is just inducted Alberto El Patron. Like, you need to be associated with that right now. And then they're going to do... I'm sure Global Force Wrestling would make Rey Mysterio their champion for a limited amount of time. But what does that even mean in 2017? You know, that title holds no weight in the wrestling world anymore. I just think it would be a massive, massive mistake for Rey Mysterio to turn down WWE, even though they've not made him an offer of sorts right now, because it would mean that he gets, whether he's one last match, whether it's as a manager, who knows right now what they'll offer him. I just think you think of your family, you think of your son, who's not going to get this opportunity, like, offered to him every day. And you think of your legacy and your career, which Impact Wrestling and Global Force Wrestling will ruin, undoubtedly. So I think you take the WWE offer, you make sure it comes with a definite Hall of Fame induction, you make sure it comes with as much merchandise as you can possibly wring out of them, you make your money, you have your one last, big hurrah match at WrestleMania, and then you step away from the business, because Rey Mysterio's knees and his hips really aren't going to take another 5 years of competition.
Yeah, and for any fan that thinks that Rey Mysterio can come in and put on great matches like he used to back in the day, and then you want to go and criticize somebody for not putting on a good match, well, how about you go step in his shoes and know how his knees feel, how his hips feel. He's trying to put food on his family's table at the end of the day, and that's all that these guys are trying to do. And a lot of them are trying to live a dream. And with bad hips and bad knees, which I know exactly how that feels, it is hard to do certain things that you want to do. And at the end of the day, Rey Mysterio needs to sign with WWE. I think it would benefit him in the long run. And a Hall of Fame induction, I don't see it maybe this year or next year. I could see it in the future, though.
Yes, yeah. I think a Rey Mysterio, the name would just demand he is the main inductee of whatever class he's going into.
Exactly. At least there'll be one Mexican that doesn't hit his woman.
I see a lawsuit coming our way in the very near future, Logan. The next piece of news, I think we can roll them into one, because it's, of course, the rumours, let's say, coming out of the Mae Young Classic, as well as the news that Ronda Rousey, former UFC champion, I don't watch it, so I can't go into specifics on it, has also been heavily linked to WWE as well. Now, I know you've got something to say on this. First, on the Ronda Rousey bit, for anyone who watched the parade of competitors for the Mae Young Classic, if you watched on YouTube, you will have seen Triple H welcome Ronda Rousey to the crowd. He made a big thing of it in front of the cameras. They posed together. The pictures are online. And then, I don't know if you caught this, Logan, somebody leaked a video on YouTube of the 4 horsewomen of the UFC, which is Ronda Rousey and 3 others. 2 of them in the crowd. One of them was, I believe, a competitor in the Mae Young Classic. arguing and, holding up the four fingers to the original 4 horsewomen of NXT, Bayley, Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch and Charlotte, on opposite sides of the aisle. Should we read too much into that? Or should we just say right now, Ronda Rousey's speculation?
Oh, the 4 horsewomen. That's funny. That's funny. Let me say this right now. I think Ronda Rousey, being in the WWE, would put butts and asses in seats, just like Brock Lesnar would in UFC.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, the only thing is her transitioning into from UFC to WWE atmosphere. It might not be so different,
Yeah, I see that.
Well, at least we're not Mayweather going to a boxing match that he thinks he can win. But who says undefeated streaks last? And so
yeah, I know. Would you though? Would you if you were Triple H? Would you sign Ronda Rousey to a long-term contract? Send her to the performance center, get her trained, which could take a year, maybe 2, or would you just say she's a special attraction? Let's get her in for one WrestleMania match, and then just cut the deal there.
Sign her. Why not?
You'd sign
from
her.
UFC. I mean, if you're training, if she's very serious about becoming a professional wrestler in the WWE, and she wants to train and get familiar with everything, and why not?
Yeah.
How
I can't disagree.
I think Vince McMahon would, open the door with open arms to Ronda Rousey in the WWE.
Do you think there'd be a temptation there, though, to say she's bigger? She's a bigger name than the WWE women on the Raw roster right now, arguably, because of her achievements in UFC. Do you think it would be too much of a temptation for Vince McMahon to go, let's put her against a man. Let's make her another China?
I wouldn't want to go that far. She's not that ugly.
I meant career-wise.
Oh, my apologies. Career-wise, I think she would, if she's serious enough in training-wise and all that, you got to train in UFC, so I don't think the conditioning and all that would be so much different. I think it would actually help her get better at what she's doing.
That's fair enough. And just quickly on all this talk from the Mae Young Classic, because we are running out of time, Logan, and we've still got our What If segment. What do you make of what the road agents and the backstage staff have been saying about the competitors of the Mae Young Classic?
Apparently, they don't like the way they look. That's just what I'm throwing out there.
Well, shock fucking horror. WWE don't like the way a talent looks. This isn't the first time. It's not going to be the last time.
They're all they're all ugly, Matt. They look like Christian Cage. They look so ugly.
My God.
Thank you, Vince, for that opinion.
Yeah, thanks, Vince. We won't be listening to many more of your opinions. I just think WWE needs to, if all this is true, I think WWE, we're in 2017, they need to take their head out the sand and stop judging a wrestler by their looks and start judging them by what they can do in the ring. Because we've seen way too many, in inverted commas, pretty boys in wrestling who couldn't fucking put on a good match if they had 50 years in the business, as where you've got some wrestlers who have passed in the years gone by, haven't been prettiest on the eye, but they could really go in the ring. I'm past the point where I want to see handsome boys and handsome girls pushed because of their looks rather than their talent. So who gives a flying fuck If anybody if
$2.
anybody in that tournament looks ugly, is conceived to be ugly by Vince McMahon, who's no oil painting himself, by the way, who cares? You're running a wrestling business, not a fashion business, not a glamour business. You should be basing these women on what they can do in the ring, and who cares what they look like?
Exactly. And when it comes down to it, looks isn't everything. It's about the in-ring talent and what they can do in the ring, what they can do in the promo-wise. I mean,
exactly.
Apparently, all the backstage talk and backstage guys that run the company. Vince McMahon, I guess you want Roman Reigns to do everything because of his looks, and you want him to be the next Rock. Not all the women, not all the men are going to be or look the way you want them to look or act. And
exactly.
That's pathetic to even want or think. And for you to even say that actually say and be that unprofessional and say that they are ugly and that you don't think they look right or look good, what does that make any of the guys or gals in the indies want to even come up to the WWE or NXT?
Yeah, exactly. And it's a case of you're cutting your nose off to spite your face. You're a businessman, for Christ's sake. You're running a business. The business is wrestling. And if you're not hiring people for their talent, then what are you doing in the wrestling industry? And that is a valid point, I'm afraid, for anyone who's sitting there going, oh, they're just talking bollocks. We're not talking bollocks. You are running a wrestling business. And if you just want to hire people for their looks, go into the fashion business. It wouldn't be the first time WWE opened up a second branch. Who can forget the XFL or the World Bodybuilding Federation? So, sorry, Vince, but it's not all about looks. We, as fans, care far more about what wrestlers can do in the ring. And Logan, before I have a heart attack getting annoyed about this, it brings us to our final segment of the week. And that is, of course, the very popular What If?
What if, guys? Ladies and gentlemen, Maniac Matt put on a poll, I think it was a couple days ago on Twitter, asking, who do you guys want us to talk about on being the next world heavyweight champ? Who could have been, should have been a world champion? Before we mention the guy that we are going to talk about today, next week on our next episode of Future Wrestling Podcast, do not miss that we will be talking about what if Stone Cold Steve Austin came back for one more match. Don't forget and don't miss that next week. But the topic that we're going to talk about for who should have, could have, or would have been a great world champion, Owen Hart is no doubt about it, a great choice that you guys, the fans, chose on Twitter.
A landslide, Logan, I have to add. Owen Hart received, I believe it was 64% of the vote. So thank you to everyone who voted on Twitter. We very much appreciate your votes. And we will run another poll for the week after next, I think. Because I like this little interaction we've got going with our listeners, Logan. So definitely look out for another poll in the next few weeks. But you've chosen the King of Hearts, the Rocket, Owen Hart. And we came to an agreement earlier, Logan, that from now on, when we're doing the What If segment about wrestlers who should have been champion, we weren't going to choose like two different people like we did in week one. We were going to choose one person or have that one person chosen for us and then pick two different times in that person's career where we both think he could have been champion. So I've talked way too much tonight. The floor's yours, my friend. At what period in Owen Hart's career would you have put the WWF Championship around his waist?
I think it was back in 1993. I think when his feud with his brother Brett won the Pro Wrestling Illustrated Feud of the Year award and garnered the praise from the Wrestling Observer newsletter for their steel cage match at SummerSlam. I think that really became the pivotal.
Do you mean 1994?
It says 1993 on my notes.
Owen Hart versus Bret Hart was 1994. Owen Hart originally, the seeds were sown at Survivor Series 93 in the Hart family versus Shawn Michaels and his Knights elimination match, where Bret Hart knocked Owen off of the apron by accident. Owen knocked Bret off the apron by accident, and that caused Owen Hart to be pinned. And then there was a lot of to do, let's say, in the weeks leading up to the 94 Royal Rumble, where we weren't quite sure whether Owen was going to turn on Bret. You know, he looked like he would, and then he did. And I think it was Bret Hart and Owen Hart versus the Quebecers for the WWF Tag Team Championships at the 1994 Royal Rumble. And Owen kicked Bret's leg out from under him. And then
I apologize. I apologize.
That's all right. I've just geeked out a little bit there.
But it was actually in the middle of 1993 when Bret Hart's feud with Jerry Lawler ignited, and Owen stood by his brother's side and fought against Lawler, and the United States Wrestling Association, where most of the WWF talent were considered heels.
Yeah.
I think Owen Hart, that would have gave him the pivotal moment of his career, is to win the championship there, then turn on his brother later down the road, and then have that match, SummerSlam inside the steel cage, and then have the feud of the year award from the Wrestling Observer newsletter. And, I think at the end of the day, you could talk about when and where a guy should have won, and sometimes it's more about if he should have won, or why he should have won.
Yeah, exactly. Owen Hart, I believe, to my knowledge, was, let me get this right, the USWA Unified World Heavyweight Champion in Jerry Lawler's company for a very, very short amount of time. But that title isn't even in the picture of important world championships. I think if history had played out differently, if Lex Luger had have defeated Yokozuna at SummerSlam 93, a subject we've talked a lot about on Slam Pigs and everything, I think history would have played out differently. Bret Hart, it's difficult now because I would have had Bret Hart then defeat Lex Luger either at the Royal Rumble for the title, because Luger was no main event star in WWF as much as they wanted him to be, and then either lose it to Owen in that excellent WrestleMania 10 match, or maybe had Bret Hart take the title from Luger at WrestleMania 10 and then have him lose it to Owen in that cage match at SummerSlam. I just think Owen really came into his own after he beat Bret at WrestleMania. That propelled him onto King of the Ring, where he won. For me, one of the best King of the Ring tournaments, just nostalgia-wise as a child. And then I think after he lost to Bret Hart at SummerSlam, his singles career was pretty much done for a few years until he had the Intercontinental title run around about 97. He was just in a tag team with the British Bulldog for a while from, I believe I'm right in saying, from 95 to 97 before they broke up. So I think that the point between WrestleMania 10 and SummerSlam 94, that 4-5 months, it was the peak of Owen Hart's singles career for me. And you could have put that belt on Owen Hart at WrestleMania and had him lose it at SummerSlam. I think that was the prime. If you were ever going to pull the trigger on it, that was going to be it. And I've heard rumours, Logan, that if Owen Hart had indeed have been with us today, I'm sure everybody knows he sadly died at Over the Edge 99. Tragic accident. But I have heard rumours that Vince McMahon probably would have made him at least World Heavyweight Champion in 2002 had he stuck around that long. You know, I know there was talks of... There was a big rumour that Vince was going to put him against Triple H in 2000, which I would have liked to have seen. But sadly, we'll never know now because...
No, we wouldn't have. I think, what if the accident wouldn't have happened? Where would his career have gone? And I think that's something that a lot of people should know. That I think, in my personal opinion, I think if he would have been alive after the accident, or if the accident never happened, which, I think he could have been a bigger star than Brett. I have this funny point side.
Yeah, I can't disagree. Brett would have gone to WCW regardless. Obviously, he went before Owen died. I get the feeling that after Brett left the company, and of course in the circumstances that he left, the Hart family that were left in WWE, the British Bulldog brought himself out of his contract. Owen stayed in the company. I think what followed for Owen in 98 and the first part of 99 before his passing was punishment by WWE, putting him with the Nation of Domination. That was just ridiculous. Making him into the Blue Blazer again, that was pointless. Owen Hart had a brilliant gimmick. Even years after he won the King of the Ring, that King of Hearts title stuck with him. And it did him a lot of good. I think if you'd have just tweaked it slightly for the Attitude Era and just give him some decent material against some decent wrestlers, Owen Hart would have... There was rumour that he was done with the business after Brett got screwed, and he was just going to make his money, and then when he'd made his money, he was going to go. But I think if you'd have treated him like royalty, and to be fair, he was wrestling royalty in a way, because the Hart family are one of the most synonymous wrestling families in history. If you'd have promised Owen Hart a 7-figure sum, a run as champion, he'd have stayed around. And we know in wrestling that bridges are never burnt. Bret Hart came back to the company, all's well with him and Vince now. And I think in time, Owen Hart, if not in 94, I would have said almost certainly in 2000 to 2001, would have been WWF champion.
What if, man? That's
exactly what if. We'll never know. It's sad, and it's tragic. For me, Owen Hart is wrestling's biggest tragedy because of what happened to him. Wrestlers will pass in the future, but I don't think any will pass in the circumstances that Owen Hart passed. And I know, we can't go into it, what happened, because there is still a massive legal problem with it, We don't want to get sued. We don't want to get sued for going into the details.
We're not going to get sued when I say this. He should be in the Hall of Fame.
Definitely. I have heard that a lot of the reason why we haven't got a lot of Owen Hart stuff, like a Hall of Fame induction, even an up-to-date Mattel wrestling figure, which there should be. let's be honest, is because of his wife. She doesn't want WWE to use his name. I know they released a DVD 2 years ago, a box set, which I own. But yeah, I know his family, his wife, they have a lot to do with what WWE use. And, I know, the chances of Owen Hart's wife listening to this are zero. She probably doesn't even listen to podcasts. But on the off chance that she is, on the off chance that someone knows her, then just let him go into the Hall of Fame. Owen Hart was a brilliant wrestler. He would have gotten even better had he still been with us. Pardon me. He was one of the definitive heels of the early 90s. He belongs in the Hall of Fame, as does the British Bulldog, But Owen Hart belongs beside his brother, beside the greats of the business in the Hall of Fame. So even if you don't want WWE using him in the future, using his name, just let them have a pass for that one night. And then you don't have to have anything to do with them ever again. But for me, by not allowing Owen to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, because WWE would induct him if they were allowed, I have no doubt about that. I think the fans are being cheated. I think Owen Hart's legacy is being cheated. And that's not putting anyone down, Logan. I'm not having to go at his wife or his family, because I totally understand the reasons they don't want him associated with the business. But I honestly believe that Owen Hart's legacy won't be complete until he's inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Exactly. And until that happens, it's always what if and
it is
when or if. I think
yeah.
That's all I can say about the segment. Do you have any final words on what if, Matt?
The only final words I have are Owen Hart's a legend, and it's the whole situation surrounding him and everything that's happening legally. It's sad, You're not tarnishing a legacy, but you're holding it up from being completed. And that's sad. And Owen would have, Owen's family want him to go in. I think Owen would have wanted to go in. It's where the greats belong. And the last thing I'll say is Owen Hart. People can say he's considered a legend because of his passing. I can say that, but he left the wrestling world, with a lot of happy memories. He was one of the definitive heels of my childhood, and I know a lot of people's childhood who are the same age as me today. And for me, and you'll never talk me out of this, Owen Hart is one of the legends of the business, and that's this week's What If.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time for this week's Future Wrestling Podcast. Like I said, do not miss the What If segment for next week, as we will talk about Stone Cold and what if he came back for one more match. And don't miss the Hot Seat segment. We will have 3 more things to discuss in 60 seconds each, and we will have plenty of news, and including the NXT review of next week. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Logan Myers, the Wolverine Logan Myers. Matt, where can they check you out on Twitter, on your Facebook if you have one, Instagram?
You're just trying to think of things now, aren't you? You can check me out on Twitter at TenantFutureDW as always. You can check me out on Slampix Podcast Union Smack. And Logan, where can they find you?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can check me out on Twitter at LoganMyers144. Please hit the like button on this video. Please subscribe and follow us on Facebook at Future Wrestling Podcast. And this week, It is done. It's over with. Episode 2. This is
episode 3. Logan's that
Episode
excited
3.
he cannot remember what episode we are on. But
Well,
yes, we are done. And
John Matthews had me all pissed off earlier, so I can't even remember.
let's blame
But I had
Josh Matthews. Let's blame Josh Matthews.
Hey guys, Travis here from Hibiki TMD, reminding you as always to follow me on Twitter at the Hibiki TMD. Check out the Reset Button podcast with myself and Tannen, Hibiki Quickie, Hibiki History, Retrospectives, everything in between, retro gaming, and pro wrestling, not to mention my other podcast with the man himself, Michael.
Hey, you dirty fucking pigs. This is Mike from the Slam Pigs Podcast, reminding you to check us out on Twitter at the Slam Pigs Podcast, or check me out on Twitter at Mike the Slam Pig. Or Travis, where can they find that other show?
They can find everything in between right here on Hibiki TMD. I don't really think they're dirty fucking pigs.